I kept my $1.2 million hidden from my son for a reason. It wasn't because I didn't love him. It wasn't because I wanted to punish him. It was because money changes the way people look at you. And I'd already seen too many eyes go cold the moment they thought they could measure my value. Before I tell you what happened next, subscribe the channel and let me know in the comments where are you watching from. It helps more than you know. My name is Graham Larkin. I'm 69 years old and I live in St. Petersburg, Florida, the quieter side, away from the tourist noise. I spent most of my working life as a senior claims auditor for a regional insurance company. I wasn't glamorous. I wasn't loud, but I was precise. I could trace a missing penny through a stack of paperwork like a bloodhound follows scent. And for a long time, that skill was the only thing in my life that didn't disappoint me. My son, Ethan, was my pride. I raised him after my wife passed. Too early, too unfair. Ethan and I became a two-person team. I packed his lunches, sat through his science fairs, clapped until my palms hurt at his baseball games. He was the kind of boy who used to run up the driveway when he heard my car like I was the best part of his day. That boy didn't vanish overnight. He got worn down, slowly, the way paint peels after too many harsh seasons. It started when he met Sabrina. Sabrina was stunning, the kind of pretty that made strangers straighten their posture. Dark hair that always looked professionally done, nails always perfect, laughter that pulled attention like a magnet. The first time Ethan brought her to dinner, she shook my hand and smiled as if she was approving a purchase. When she learned I was retired and living on a pension, she said, "Oh, that's sweet. You must be on a very careful budget." Careful. Like I was a fragile package. Ethan didn't hear it. Or maybe he did and told himself it didn't matter. Love can make you generous with excuses. They married a year and a half later in Savannah, Georgia, in a small ceremony under Spanish moss and warm lanterns. I paid for a good portion of it because Ethan looked at me with that old, familiar hope in his eyes, and I wanted him to have the day he imagined. After the wedding, there were more requests. Little ones at first. Help with a down payment. A signature here. A cosign there. Ethan would swear he'd handle it. "Just until we're steady, Dad." Sabrina would stand behind him, smiling like it. It was all perfectly reasonable. I kept the receipts in my head. Old habit. And in a folder. Older habit. 2 years after they bought their house, Sabrina suggested I move in. "It'll be good for you," Ethan said. "We've got the extra room. You shouldn't be alone." What he didn't say was the part I saw on Sabrina's face. Tight jaw, eyes narrowing for a blink before her smile snapped back into place. I told myself I was reading too much into it. I told myself loneliness had made me suspicious. I told myself family was still family. So I moved. Their home was in Plano, Texas, a bright, wide house in a neighborhood where the lawns looked trimmed by rulers. On the first day, Sabrina showed me my room like you'd show a guest where to keep their suitcase. It was clean and small, tucked near the laundry room, far from the living spaces. "It's quiet back here," she said. Perfect. For the first few months, she was tolerable. Not warm exactly, but polite enough. I cooked sometimes, I fixed things around the house, I stayed out of the way. Then the boundaries started shifting. "Could you eat in the kitchen tonight? We're having company. Can you keep the television low? Some of us have work in the morning. Would you mind using the side door? The front entry gets crowded." Each sentence sounded simple. Each one left me a little smaller. One evening on a Wednesday, Ethan came home late and tired. Sabrina followed him in, energized in a way that made my skin prickle. She'd been shopping. Again. Her arms were full of glossy bags with tissue paper blooming out the top. Ethan glanced at them, then at the floor. I watched the moment his shoulders sagged. The moment he decided peace was worth silence. That night I overheard Sabrina on the phone in the hallway, her voice bright and sharp. "I swear I'm living with somebody's grandpa like it's a charity project." She laughed. "Ethan said he'll talk to him soon. It's time." I stood in the dark behind my cracked door listening, and something inside me clicked into place. Not anger, not sadness, clarity. Because I wasn't a charity project. I was the reason they had that house, the reason their credit ever survived their habits, the reason they lived the way they did, and I had been pretending not to notice. The next morning I made coffee, sat at the little table Sabrina had decided was my spot. and watched her flip through the mail like the world owed her good news. Ethan kissed her cheek, grabbed his keys, and left without looking at me. Sabrina's eyes slid toward me. She smiled sweetly. "Graham," she said like honey over glass, "we should all talk tonight, as a family." She walked away before I could answer. I lifted my mug, steady hands, steady breath. I already knew what the talk would be, and I already knew what I was going to do about it. Sabrina waited until after dinner to begin. She always did things that way. Let people relax first. Let the room settle, then apply pressure where it would hurt most. Ethan cleared the plates without meeting my eyes. I noticed how automatic it had become for him, that quiet obedience. He used to argue with me about everything when he was young. Now he avoided conflict like it was contagious. Sabrina sat across from me, legs crossed, hands folded neatly on the table. "So," she said lightly, "we've been talking." Ethan nodded beside her, jaw tight. I didn't interrupt. Silence makes people uncomfortable. They rush to fill it, and when they do, they show you who they really are. Sabrina leaned forward. "This living arrangement isn't working long-term for anyone." I waited. She sighed theatrically. "You're at a stage in life where you need independence, dignity, space, and we're newly married. We need our privacy." Ethan finally looked up. "Dad, it's not like that. We just think maybe you'd be happier somewhere else. A smaller place, maybe closer to medical services." Medical services. I almost smiled. "I'm healthy," I said calmly. "My doctor would agree." Sabrina's smile stiffened. "Of course, but things change quickly at your age." There it was, the line in the sand. "How much time are you giving me?" I asked. Ethan swallowed. "We thought maybe 3 weeks. 3 weeks. After 6 years of living under their roof, contributing quietly, paying bills without being asked, fixing what broke." I nodded slowly. "That's generous." Sabrina relaxed, clearly relieved that I wasn't shouting or begging. People like her mistake calm for weakness. "Good," she said. "I knew you'd understand." I stood, collected my mug, and rinsed it at the sink. My hands didn't shake. They hadn't shaken in decades. Panic had never helped anyone solve a problem. That night, in the small room near the laundry machines, I opened my laptop. I logged into an account I hadn't checked in months. The balance glowed softly on the screen. $1.2 million. 42 years of careful saving, modest living, long-term investments, quiet discipline. I had never mentioned it to Ethan. I wanted him to build his own footing without leaning on the idea of inheritance. That decision no longer felt noble. I pulled out the folder from my suitcase, the one I'd kept tucked beneath old sweaters. Inside were copies of every document I had ever signed for Ethan: the house loan assistance, the business credit line, the vehicle co-sign for Sabrina's luxury sedan. I laid them out on the bed one by one like pieces of a puzzle that finally made sense. The next morning I told Ethan I was going for a walk. Instead, I drove to Clearwater, to a modest office above a bakery that smelled like sugar and bread. The sign read, "Monroe and Keating, Attorneys at Law." The woman who greeted me was named Lydia Monroe. Sharp eyes, calm voice, no wasted words. "Tell me everything," she said. So I did. She read quietly, occasionally tapping a pen against the desk. When she finished, she looked up. "You're in a strong position," she said, "stronger than you realize." I felt something loosen in my chest. She explained the options plainly. Demand letters, loan recalls, co-signer withdrawals, everything legal, everything clean. "What do you want?" she asked. "I want out," I said, "with my dignity intact and my money protected." She nodded. Then we moved carefully. That evening, Sabrina hosted friends. I stayed in my room, listening to laughter float through the hallway like I was invisible. At one point, I heard her voice, sharp, careless. "He's supposed to be gone soon," she said. Finally. I didn't flinch, because the next move was already in motion. Over the following days, I changed nothing outwardly. I packed slowly, folded clothes, sorted photographs. Ethan seemed relieved by my cooperation. Sabrina grew kinder, almost cheerful. People get generous when they think they've won. On the 5th day, Lydia called. "We're ready," she said. "When you say the word." I stood by the window watching Sabrina's car pull into the driveway, the one I'd co-signed when her credit wasn't good enough. "Send it," I said. That night I slept better than I had in years. Not because I felt vindicated, Because for the first time I was no longer pretending that silence was peace. The letters arrived on a Thursday morning. I wasn't there to see them opened. I had already left the house by the time the courier dropped 3 thick envelopes at the front door. Instead, I was parked a block away, sitting in my old sedan with the engine off, hands folded loosely in my lap. I didn't feel excitement. I felt focus. At 8:22, Sabrina stepped outside in a silk robe, phone in one hand, coffee in the other. She frowned at the envelopes like they were an inconvenience, not a warning. She opened the first one, standing up. Her shoulders stiffened. She opened the second. The coffee cup slipped from her fingers and shattered on the concrete. I turned the key and drove away. By the time I reached a diner on US Highway 19, my phone was already vibrating. I let it ring. Pancakes arrived, coffee followed. I took my time. When I finally answered, Ethan's voice was raw. "Dad, what did you do?" "I protected myself," I said. The line went quiet. Then Sabrina's voice burst through, sharp and panicked. "You froze our accounts. Our cards don't work." "The banks did that," I said evenly. "When a cosigner withdraws, they reassess risk." "You can't do this," she hissed. "We'll take you to court." "My attorney is Lydia Monroe," I replied. "She's expecting your call." I ended it there. I checked into a small motel in Tarpon Springs, the kind of place with sea air and faded curtains. I unpacked only what I needed. The rest stayed in the car. I wanted distance, not comfort. That afternoon, Lydia called. "They're scrambling," she said. "Their lawyer is asking for time." "Time is expensive," I replied. 2 days later, a private investigator named Marcus Hale. No, I stopped myself. I chose someone else. A man named Joel Ramirez, former financial compliance officer turned investigator, recommended quietly through Lydia. Joel met me at a cafe near the marina. He didn't smile much. I liked that. "I'm not here to destroy anyone," I told him. "I just want facts." He nodded. "Facts are my specialty." What he found surprised even me. Sabrina had credit cards Ethan didn't know about. A personal loan taken out under a shortened version of her name. Thousands spent on online luxury retailers, quietly paid just enough to keep balances from exploding. Ethan wasn't reckless. He was ignorant. Worse, part of the business loan I had co-signed, money Ethan claimed was for equipment, had been used as a down payment on Sabrina's car. Misrepresentation, clean paper trail. Joel slid the documents across the table. "This changes negotiations," he said. I closed the folder slowly. "I'm not trying to ruin my son," I said, "but I won't be ruined for him either." Back at the motel that night, I stared at the ceiling fan spinning lazily above me. I thought about Ethan at 8 years old, learning to ride a bike, about the way he'd cried when he scraped his knee and how I'd carried him home. Then I thought about the dinner parties I'd eaten through walls, the side door, the word charity. Love doesn't mean accepting erasure. 3 days later, Lydia arranged a meeting. Neutral office, glass walls, polite smiles that didn't reach the eyes. Ethan looked smaller. Sabrina looked furious. Their attorney spoke first. "We'd like to resolve this amicably, then start honestly," Lydia said. She laid out the documents, the loan misuse, the hidden debt, the withdrawn co-signatures. Silence filled the room. Sabrina broke it. "That money was for us. For business," Lydia corrected, "according to the bank." Ethan finally looked at me. Really looked. "You knew?" he asked quietly. "I noticed," I said. "That's not the same thing." He flinched. The offers came quickly after that. Low at first, insulting, then higher. Still not enough. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't threaten. I waited. That's when they understood something fundamental had changed. I wasn't asking anymore, I was collecting. When the meeting ended, Sabrina stormed out first. Ethan lingered. "I didn't think you'd do this," he said. "I didn't think you'd let her treat me the way you did," I replied. He had no answer. That night, alone again, I felt something unfamiliar settle in, not triumph, resolve, and I knew the next decision would decide everything. They came back a week later with a better offer. Not good, just better. Lydia read it to me over the phone while I sat on a weathered bench overlooking the water in Dunedin, pelicans drifting lazily nearby like they had nowhere important to be. 180,000, she said, paid over 2 years, full release of claims. I laughed once quietly. Not because it was funny, but because it told me everything I needed to know. They're scared, I said. They're hoping you'll get tired, Lydia replied, or sentimental. I watched the tide move in slow, patient rhythms. Water didn't rush. It waited. It always won. Send back a no, I said, nothing else. She didn't argue. That evening, Ethan called, not shouting this time. No Sabrina in the background, just him. Dad, he said, can we talk? Just us. We are talking, I replied. A pause, then softer. I didn't know about the extra cards or the loan thing, I swear. I believe you, I said, and I did. But belief doesn't undo signatures. He exhaled shakily. She says you're trying to ruin us. I'm trying to leave with what's mine, I said. There's a difference. Another pause. Longer this time. Where are you staying? He asked. A place with quiet, I answered. You wouldn't like it. No drama. He almost laughed. Almost. After we hung up, I walked back to the motel and slept without dreams. 2 days later, Joel called. There's more, he said. Nothing illegal this time. Just relevant. We met again. Same cafe, same corner table. He slid over a thinner folder. Sabrina had been telling people I was unstable, confused, that she and Ethan had been taking care of me, that they'd supported me financially. She's laying groundwork, Joel said. In case this turns public, I nodded. I'd expected as much. Does Ethan know? I asked. Not from what I can tell. I closed the folder. Thank you. That afternoon, Lydia called again. They want another meeting, she said. In person. I agreed. The office was downtown Tampa, all glass and steel. Ethan sat rigid in his chair. Sabrina didn't bother hiding her contempt anymore. Her eyes followed me like I'd stolen something she believed belonged to her. Their attorney cleared his throat. My clients are prepared to increase the offer. Let's skip the dance, Lydia said calmly. You don't have leverage anymore. You're negotiating damage control. Sabrina slammed her hand on the table. This is insane. He lived with us for years. We fed him. And you spent money you didn't earn, Lydia replied evenly. Let's stay factual. Ethan's face was pale. He looked at me like he wanted to say something, anything that might rewind time. I never asked to live with you, I said quietly. You offered, and then you resented me for accepting. Sabrina scoffed. You're acting like a victim. No, I said. I stopped acting like one. The room went silent. Lydia slid forward a single page. Here are the terms. I watched Sabrina read it, watched the color drain from her face. Property transfer, clean separation, no public filings, no criminal referrals, a way out that didn't destroy Ethan's future. Ethan stared at the paper like it might bite him. That's our house, he said hoarsely. I know, I replied. I helped pay for it. Sabrina stood up so fast her chair scraped the floor. You're doing this to punish me. I met her eyes. Calm, clear. I'm doing this so I can finally leave. They asked for time. Lydia gave them a week. When we walked out, Ethan followed me into the hallway. I don't recognize you, he said. That's because you stopped looking a long time ago, I replied. I drove back toward the coast as the sun dipped low, turning the sky copper and violet. I felt tired, but not the heavy, hopeless tiredness I'd lived with for years. This was the tiredness that comes after standing up, and I knew the next answer they gave would decide whether this ended quietly or cleanly. They didn't wait the full week. 3 days after the meeting, Lydia called early in the morning. Her voice was steady, but I could hear the satisfaction underneath it. They've agreed, she said. Property transfer. Full terms. I sat at the small table in my motel room staring at a cup of coffee I hadn't touched yet. Ethan agreed? I asked. Yes, she replied reluctantly. Sabrina didn't speak much. That told me more than she realized. The signing was scheduled for the following afternoon at a notary office in Lakeland. Neutral ground. No drama. No speeches. I arrived early. Old habit. The room smelled faintly of toner and lemon cleaner. Beige walls. A clock ticking louder than it should have. Ethan and Sabrina arrived together, but they weren't together. Ethan looked exhausted, the kind of tired that sleep doesn't fix. Sabrina looked immaculate, as always, but brittle. Her composure felt rehearsed now, like a mask worn too long. No one hugged. No one smiled. Lydia greeted me with a nod. Their attorney avoided eye contact. The notary explained the process. Pages were turned, pens were lifted. Ethan signed first. His hand shook just slightly. He paused afterward, staring at his name like he didn't recognize it. Sabrina signed next. Fast, hard, like she wanted the ink to tear the paper. I signed last. My name looked steady, familiar, the same way I'd signed thousands of reports over the years. "It's complete," the notary said. Just like that, the house on a quiet street in Plano no longer belonged to my son. Sabrina stood abruptly. "You think you've won?" she snapped. "But you've destroyed this family." I didn't raise my voice. "You destroyed the idea that I belonged in it." Ethan didn't look at either of us. He stared at the table, jaw tight, eyes glassy. "I never wanted this," he said. "Neither did I," I replied. But wanting doesn't erase choices. They left without another word. Outside, the air was thick with Florida heat. I stood still for a moment, letting it press against my skin, letting the finality settle. Later that evening, Lydia called. "The house will list immediately," she said. "Market's favorable. You'll do well." I already knew. The sale moved faster than expected. Multiple offers, a bidding push, clean close. After the remaining mortgage and agreed offsets, my account settled just over $1.3 million. The number didn't thrill me. What thrilled me was waking up without tension in my chest. I left the motel 2 days later and drove north, away from cities I'd outgrown. I followed side roads until billboards thinned and the air smelled like pine instead of exhaust. I found a small place outside Blairsville, Georgia. 1 story, wide porch, enough land for quiet mornings and long sunsets. I paid in cash. The realtor congratulated me like I'd won something. I hadn't. I'd reclaimed it. The first night there, I slept with the windows open. Crickets, wind through trees, no footsteps in hallways, no whispers behind doors. My phone buzzed once. "Ethan." I stared at the screen for a long moment. Then I turned it face down. Not out of anger, out of self-respect. Weeks passed. I settled into routines I'd forgotten were possible. Morning walks, coffee on the porch, conversations that didn't feel like negotiations. A neighbor brought over pie. Another waved every evening at sunset. No one asked what I owned or what I was worth. They just saw me. One afternoon, Lydia sent a final message. "All matters closed, clean exit." I thanked her and shut the phone off. As the sun dipped low behind the hills, I realized something quietly important. I hadn't taken revenge. I'd taken responsibility for myself, and that changed everything. Somewhere, Ethan was learning what silence costs. Somewhere, Sabrina was learning what entitlement eventually demands. And here, in the quiet, I finally understood what peace actually sounds like. Life didn't change all at once. It softened. The days stopped feeling like something I had to brace myself against. Mornings arrived quietly. I woke when I wanted, not when footsteps passed my door or voices lowered in the next room. I brewed coffee and drank it on the porch while mist lifted off the trees like the land itself was exhaling. In Blairsville, people nodded when they passed. They didn't ask what I did before. They didn't ask why I'd moved alone. They accepted what was in front of them, and that was enough. I furnished the house slowly. A solid table, a comfortable chair, nothing flashy. Everything chosen because it would last. Old habits don't disappear just because circumstances improve. I planted herbs by the kitchen window. Basil, rosemary. Things you tend patiently and use sparingly. Some evenings I sat outside until the sky darkened completely. No television, no phone. Just the sound of cicadas and the knowledge that nothing was about to explode emotionally in my presence. That kind of quiet is earned. Ethan called again about a month later. I let it ring twice before answering. "Dad," he said. His voice sounded smaller than I remembered, not broken, just worn. "I'm listening," I said. There was a long pause. I imagined him sitting somewhere unfamiliar, a borrowed couch, a room that didn't feel like his. "She left," he said finally. I didn't respond right away. "She said everything was my fault," he continued, "that I chose you over her." I closed my eyes, not in pain, in understanding. "You didn't choose me," I said. "You chose not to stop something that was wrong." He exhaled sharply. "I didn't see it." "I know," I said. "That's why this hurts." Another silence, then quieter. "I miss you." I felt it then. The pull, The instinct to rush in and make things easier, smoother, less sharp. The same instinct that had cost me 6 years of my life. "I love you," I said. "That hasn't changed." "But?" he asked. "But I won't live the way I used to," I said. "If we're going to have a relationship, it will be built slowly, with respect on both sides." He didn't argue. That told me he finally understood the terms. "I'm trying to do better," he said. "I hope you do," I replied, and I meant it. After we hung up, I didn't feel hollow. I felt complete, like I'd said what needed to be said, not what would keep the peace for another few weeks. Months passed. I joined a local walking group, mostly retirees, a few early risers who liked the quiet. We talked about weather, gardens, old movies. No one pried. I learned which grocery store had the best bread, which mechanic didn't overcharge, which cafe stayed open late enough to watch the sky change colors through the windows. One afternoon, I sat down with my accounts and did the math one last time. Not out of anxiety, out of closure. After everything, legal fees, moving costs, the house, I still had just over $1.3 million. For the first time, the number felt like background noise. Money isn't power, choice is. I thought about the man I'd been when this all started. Quiet, careful, shrinking himself to fit inside someone else's comfort. That man didn't disappear. He stood up. "I don't know what Sabrina tells people now. I don't need to. Stories told by people who never owned their actions eventually collapse under their own weight. As for Ethan, we speak occasionally. Slowly, honestly. No pretending, no favors disguised as love. That's all I ever wanted." On my porch one evening, as the sun slid behind the hills and the sky turned the color of embers, I felt something settle deep in my chest. Not victory, peace. I didn't win. I reclaimed myself. And if you've been listening this far, subscribe to the channel and let me know in the comments what time it is where you're watching from. It helps more than you know.